Hey all, welcome back to Triple Goddess Soapery. My name is Angela and today we are making lotion. And this lotion video, I have started the voiceover at least 4 times, so hopefully fifth time is the charm. Now, if you're looking for this specific formula, it is available over on Patreon. If you're looking for a free formula that is tried, tested, and true, I highly recommend Marie's blog over on Humblebee and Me. You will find tons of beautiful formulas for all sorts of things that are tried, tested, true, and anything from the most simple to the most complicated. You will find it there. The very first hand lotion recipe that I ever used was her lemon chiffon hand lotion, and it is absolutely beautiful. And that's actually the starting point for this formula. Because basically, what I wanted to do was I wanted to formulate a hand and body cream that was thicker and richer, something that you could use in a jar that wasn't pumpable and that would just provide even more hydration and emollient properties for my very dry skin, especially in the wintertime. So that is what I did. Now, when you're making lotion, the very first thing that you need to do is make sure everything is very clean and sanitized because you do not want to compromise your formula with all kinds of creepy crawlies and what have you. So, I like to start off by washing all of my equipment, all of my tools, all of my containers and surfaces, and then spraying them down with 70% alcohol and letting everything dry. And once that's all done, then we're going to get to work. So, with most lotions and creams, you're going to have 3 phases. You're going to have a water phase, you're going to have an oil phase, and you could have generally a cool down phase. Most people do. So, what I like to do is I like to take 2 heat-proof containers. These containers that I'm using today are 1,000 and 2,000 gram beakers that I bought on Amazon. They are heat safe. So I'm measuring out all of my water ingredients in one and all of my oil ingredients in the other. And I like using, you can see I'm using this watch glass, and I like to use something so I can accurately measure the ingredient and then put it into the main container because I'm the kind of person that doesn't want to dirty, 5 different containers. So I'll measure everything into the same container and then I'll end up over pouring something and then it's really hard to take it away then. Now, with most of my products, I use hemp seed oil, which you can see here. I'm also using cocoa butter because that is one of the it's a hard butter and it's something that I wanted to add to this formula to give it more richness and a thicker quality. I'm also using an emulsifying wax, which you need if you're going to make a lotion because a lotion or cream is an emulsification, so you need something to bind the water and the oil together. I'm also using a fatty thickener. My thickener of choice is cetyl alcohol. It's a beautiful ingredient. It's nice and silky on the skin. I'm also using glycerin for its humectant properties, which means it attracts moisture from the air to your skin. I also have a few other actives that go into my body cream. I like to use aloe vera juice. I'm also using colloidal oatmeal because I have fairly sensitive, averagely sensitive dry skin. So I'm using colloidal oatmeal and I add that to the oil phase because it just mixes a little better and doesn't get clumpy. So there's a little tip for you there. So once I have my water phase and my oil phase all melted out, I'm using a very simple water bath to melt everything down and heat everything up. I have this hot plate, and all I have is an old frying pan, couple inches of water, and I'm putting them on the heat, medium low heat, until everything is melted and hot. Now, also, too, another thing to note when you're done measuring your water phase, you should weigh it in the container and note that down somewhere. And then for me, I like to cover the container with something to help prevent evaporation. So once we're all done and everything's ready to go, I can take the container off the heat and I can go measure it and I can add back the water that evaporated. Honestly, that's something I've never done before until I started selling my products. Because for me, a gram or two here and there wasn't a big deal, so I didn't worry about it. So while this is all melting down, I am weighing out my cool down ingredients. So for me, this is my preservative, it's my fragrance, it's my color, and it's any actives that might be heat sensitive. And the reason we have a cool down phase is because all the ingredients in this phase are ingredients that may be damaged by heat. So we want to add them after our product has cooled down and it's safe to do so. Now, this video footage, it took me about 2 hours from beginning to end to make this cream. Now, it's when you're making a small batch, this is a 2,000 gram batch. If you're making a very small batch, it might only take you 30 minutes, but you really need to practice patience when you're making creams because you don't want to rush the process. You don't want to risk having your emulsion fail or having your preservative become damaged and not being effective. So just be patient, take your time, and you'll end up with a beautiful product. Now all I'm doing is, now that the cool down phase is all done or all measured out, I'm just giving it a good mix, making sure it's all blended well, and I'm just setting it to the side. And every once in a while, I just come over, I check my temperatures, and I give my oil phase a little bit of a twirl just to, help it melt down a little faster. And I just wait. I just walk away. I do a little bit of cleaning. I might work on labels. I might watch a little YouTube, surf social media. Basically, entertain yourself. Let everything melt down. Now that we've made it this far, if you are enjoying this video, I encourage you to hit the like and subscribe button for more content like this. I have lots of videos and lots of video ideas, and if you have any video ideas or questions or things that you would like to see, please drop them in a comment below because I would love to hear from you. Now we are just taking our time, letting everything melt down and be beautiful. And in no time at all, we are going to have lotion that is ready to come off the heat, and you will see the magic of emulsification. So one tip that I have, and I actually don't do it in this video, is that when you're measuring out your water phase and your oil phase, if you have two different size containers, you're going to want your water phase to be in the smaller container because it's much easier to pour water into oil than it is to pour oil into water because you're going to lose less in the transfer. Does that make sense? Because it really doesn't matter, especially for my formula and any formula actually that I've ever used. It really doesn't matter whether you pour the water into the oil or the oil into the water. But for efficiency, pouring water into oil, so much easier, and you're going to lose so much less in the process. So that is what I recommend. And I'm pretty sure 9 times out of 10, I always put my water phase in the smaller container without thinking. Now, I will say I do have 2 of these large containers, and I think the time after this when I made lotion, I actually used both the same size container, so it didn't matter. Anyway, that's my hot tip of the day. So right here, I've turned off the heat and I've just gone over and I've weighed my water phase and I've added back in the couple grams that's missing. And I'm taking my oil phase off and I'm being very careful because the jars are very hot and I'm making sure the bottoms are dried off. And then this is where the magic happens. Just pouring my oils into the water and I'm making sure to get every little last bit scraped out because we don't want to lose any of that lovely goodness. Now, I use an immersion blender, and that's what I recommend. You could do this by hand, but it would be very long and tedious. And all I do is I immerse my blender slowly, give it a few taps on the bottom to release any air bubbles, and then I give it a few pulses until I'm happy that I'm not going to splash molten hot lotion all over myself and everything around me. And then I blend for about 1 to 2 minutes. When I'm done blending, I let it sit for about 10 minutes and I come back and I blend for a minute. Then I let it sit for 10 minutes and I blend for a minute. And I do this until I'm happy that I have a nice strong emulsion that's not going to break. And depending on the thickness of the lotion, at some point I will stop and then I will just blend by hand with a spatula because I don't want to work any air bubbles into the lotion just because it's aesthetically not pleasing and I don't need it to be fluffy like a mousse. I want this to be a thick, rich, luxurious cream. So I don't want there to be a bunch of air bubbles in it. And once in a while, I'm going to check the temperature and I'm going to wait until I am under 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the level at which I'm safe to add my preservative. And I was just giving my cool down ingredients a bit of a stir just to check them out, just to see, make sure it's all well blended and stuff, and just playing around, to be honest. And here we go. I've taken the immersion blender away and it's still quite thin, which is quite surprising considering the amount of cocoa butter that I have in this recipe. But you will be very surprised at how it goes from being very thin to very thick almost in a second. It's always surprising to me that, when I'm making lotion, that all of a sudden I have lotion. So we are good here. I think I might check the temperature one more time. I'm not sure. And you can still see it's still quite thin, but it is under 120 degrees now. And I'm just, I don't know, playing with it, giving it a good stir. And this is without stirring too vigorously. I am releasing some of those bubbles. So you can see the thermometer said it was about 112 degrees. So we are in that safe zone. We can add our cool down ingredients now. And here we go. Yeah, we're at 110 and 43 Celsius. So we're good. We're good to go. So another hot tip, pour some of your lotion base into the cool down container and stir it up until it's well incorporated and nice and smooth. And then you can take your cool down ingredients with the lotion and pour that into your large batch. This is just one more tip so that you're getting as much of your cool down ingredients and your extracts and all the goodness in that little jar into your final lotion batch. Basically, you're going to lose as little as possible of all of those active ingredients by doing this way first. So we're just going to get it all scraped out and we're just going to stir it up and we're going to blend it up with our spatula until we're satisfied that everything is well incorporated and well blended. This actually is really helpful to have a color because you can tell when it's all well incorporated and well blended in there. Now you could put this in your jars now and leave the jars to cool and then cover them. But what I prefer to do is once this is all done, all I do is put my watch glass on top and put a cloth on top of that, and I just left it on my counter overnight so that it would cool down, and then I jarred up my jars. Now there is one last step that you need to do when you're making lotions and creams, especially if it's a recipe that you're not sure of or that you're making substitutions or it's the first time that you're formulating and you don't know for sure. You really need to test the pH. You can buy a pH meter on Amazon. They come with instructions, they come with a calibration kit, and it's just really, really important to test the pH. For me, I prefer if your lotions and creams sit between 4.5 and 5.5, under 6, you're good to go. So you really need to test your pH, and if it falls in that range, we're all good. So here we are the next day. We have tested our pH. Everything is nice and cool. It's beautiful, and we are just jarring up our containers. These containers have been washed and sanitized, and I am jarring up some 8-ounce containers as well as some 4-ounce containers. And then once that's all done, I'm just going to apply my labels, which I believe I don't do on screen. So I apologize for that. I do use Canva, and I use online labels, and I just design my labels in Canva. I download them, then I upload them to Maestro Labels, which is online labels software, and then I print to PDF, and then I can print that PDF onto my labels. And Bob's your uncle. All right, so we are just about at the end here, and I am going to do a little show and tell with what the lotion looks like on my skin. It is very lovely and thick, it's not greasy, and absorbs nice and quick. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope that you found some value. If you have any questions, please leave them below. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And I will see you again in the next video. Have a wonderful day.